Today is totally different, but you all know how we do it. We are not always perfect when we do things, a little bit of this and a little bit of that. But y'all know who I am. I'm Sandy, and it's Wine Down Wednesday, and it's July 1st. How about that? Unbelievable how summer is here already. But we like to keep this thing 110%. We like to be honest, open, and real. But today is totally different. We're operating in a different way, but I can guarantee you by the time you leave tonight, you're going to have some information out of this world. But my name is Sandy, and welcome to Wind Down Wednesday. Now I am going to kick it over to our moderator.
Hello, everyone. My name is Latricia Jones, and I will be the moderator this evening for our dynamic conversation. I am so excited. We have 6 dynamic panelists with us tonight. Thank you so much, Sandy, for lending out Tuck Radio for this Wine Dine Wednesday. And so this production is put on by Tuck Radio and QB LLC. And so we're gonna dive right in. We're gonna do some introductions. So if we can start, we're gonna have each of the panelists introduce themselves and also answer the question in their introduction. What is your why for this conversation? What is your why for this conversation? And we will start with how you appear on my screen. And the first one is Carlyn. Carlyn, all the way from DC. How you doing, Carlyn?
I'm great. How are you?
Pretty good.
Good. My name is Carlyn Crawley. I am a management consultant by trade. So I got my start in corporate America. I'm also creator and founder of a digital media platform called the Femtourage, where we amplify voices of Black women. As far as my why for this conversation, I just remember my first year in a major consulting firm, trying to, just build up my own reputation and having to navigate through that. And just remember feeling really, really grateful that I had people inside the organization that were advocating for me, but also strong influences and mentors outside of it. And so if I can pass along any of that information, that would make this conversation successful for me.
Thank you, Carlyn. Sonia Jackson-Myles, how are you?
I am wonderful. I'm so excited to be here with you all this beautiful evening on July 1st. So I'll go ahead and introduce myself. Okay, good. I didn't know if you wanted to guide me along.
Oh, no. This your stage right now.
I'm Sonia Jackson-Myles, and I'm the founder and CEO of the Sister Accord LLC and the Accord Group LLC. And I would say that my why is this is my legacy. This is what I was created to do. It's how I've showed up from the time that I left the highest of the 7 hills in Tallahassee, Florida, when I was at Florida A&M University and started my career at Ford Motor Company. This is what I walked in. This is what I lived. And so to be able to share these experiences with your viewers today and to share the conversation with these amazing people that we have on the panel today really warms my heart. So I'm just honored to be here with you all.
Thank you, Sonia. Next, Kumbu Phiri, all the way from Zimbabwe. What is your why this evening for this conversation?
We can't hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. All right. I'm the CEO of Equip. I'm also the founder of Transformation Africa, which is an NGO or a nonprofit that looks at youth empowerment. And the reason why I want to be involved in this conversation is that I believe that this is a now message. and we have, the world is listening. I think for a long time people haven't been listening, and so it's time to amplify this message so that we can see transformation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Sandy from Tuck Radio, what is your why this evening for this conversation?
You're
muted.
I'm so used to just automatically just talking and not muting and just letting everybody hear what I have to say. But my why is to let people know that what we're about to talk about and what we are about to discuss should have been happening from years ago. It shouldn't have just started now. So I'm hoping that what we say and how we say it will be very meaningful, and the information that we give is very useful to those. So my why is with hopes that what we say can help change someone's thought process and how they see and feel about others when they're around them, if that makes sense. I'm not a scripted person. I just need y'all to know I'm not a scripted individual. Evie and I talked about this earlier. I'm not scripted. I come from the heart, mind, body, and soul.
Yes.
Smooches. And thank you guys. And I appreciate you guys for taking the time out and even wanting to do this on Tuck Radio.
Thank you for the opportunity. Jesiah Brock, we are doing introductions, and in your introductions, please share with the world, what is your why for this conversation?
Wow. Well, first, good evening to all the panelists here. Good evening to everyone that's watching at home. God bless you all. I guess my why, and it's funny, I was thinking about this earlier, and it's really hit me how much I have to recognize that I'm a representative of the kingdom of God. And so my why is first and foremost to represent the Lord Jesus Christ, even in these conversations. And so we learn more and we get closer together as a people when we have conversations and we discuss where we are and how we can get even closer. And so I'm excited to participate in that opportunity. God bless you all this evening.
Thank you, Jesiah. And last but not least, Ify Bell with 2B, my partner in crime in this organization. What is your why this evening?
Oh, my why. I talked about it a little bit today, and I talk about it often, right? I'm a Black female leader, right? And I am an advocate for change, right? And as an organization, we believe that we want to assist people with being who they are meant to be. And so when we expand the capacity and capabilities of individuals, we see sustainable change across communities, families, and organizations. And so my why for being here, a friend of mine called me and said, well, why are you doing that? I'm like, one, I like to talk. And two, I think that when we get together in conversations, change begins in the room you're in. So.
Absolutely. Possibilities.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. So again, my name is Latricia Jones. I am with 2B LLC as the Chief Integration Officer. And my why for this evening is to really empower those voices that want to stand up, they want to speak out, but they just don't know how. So with you panelists here, thank you so much again. We hope to empower those that are in the audience or may look at, listen to this recording later on and really just feel empowered to make a difference in the world. And I said last but not least, but we have one more. We have a co-moderator. She's in the back. She is the one that's going to be monitoring all of the comments and making sure that your voices online are in this conversation as well. And that's Ashley Phelps. Do you want to holler? Okay. No, she give me a shake.
Guys.
Give me the shake. She give me the real quick shake. So before we get started, why are we here? What is our why as a group? So as the news coverage just begins to fizzle in the media, Black people are left really grappling with the effects of racism in their everyday lives. Racism is not only limited to our experiences in the retail stores, restaurants, or social services, faith, and public spaces, but it's also in the workplace, believe it or not. For many, the workplace remains unsafe. We show up and assimilate just to earn money and sustain, just to survive. But as Black leaders, how can we begin the conversation about race and anti-racism in your workplace? The first step is ensuring that Black leaders are prepared. They're prepared to lead from the seat that they are in on current racial unrest, systematic racism, anti-racism, and the Black experience. To Be LLC, in partnership with Tuck Radio, we are here to host a virtual 2-part series panel discussion. So one is today, tonight, July 1st, and then the next one would be next Wednesday for Wind Down Wednesday, July 8th. And so we'll explore how Black leaders can guide teams and individuals through these difficult conversations and offer insight and strategy from Black experts and executives on really how to structure the workplace conversations. But before we get started, before we dive in, we want to really iterate and really hone in on the fact that this is a safe space. Okay, so you are here. We are going to honor these core values. We're going to honor the value of all teach, all learn. We are all here to learn, be open-minded, be curious, as well as to teach and offer suggestions and help to our fellow brothers and sisters. Okay, so we're just going to dive in and get started with our first question. Context statements around these questions are: racism is not only limited to our experience in retail, restaurant, stores, social services space, but many, as I said before, they experience these racisms in their workplace and they remain unsafe. So for the first question, as a Black leader, how are you doing? How are you doing? And how have the recent weeks really affected you? We're going to ask all the panelists to answer that question. How are you doing? And how has the recent weeks affected you, personal life and in the workplace? We will start with Sonia Jackson Myles. How are you? How are you doing?
Thank you for asking. And I start all of my conversations asking everyone that I'm meeting with that exact question, because so often we just kind of rush right into the business and we have not taken the time to have the soul exchange. And so thank you for asking the question. I shared, and I think I shared this in one of my posts on social media. Prior to June 10th of 2019, I had never seen anyone die before. And that was the day that my mother took her last breath. So that was very challenging. When I saw the video of George Floyd, it was the second time that I saw someone die. And I typically try to monitor and be careful and mindful of what I see, because we have to guard what we hear, what we see. But I forced myself to see it because it's real and it's a reality for many people. And we know all the names, and then there are names that we don't know. So that threw me into a tailspin. I was like, wow, what did I just see? And so I had to, first of all, check in with my sons and make sure that they were okay and understand how they were feeling, checking in with folks in the family, just to say, are you okay? Do you need to talk about it? Do we need to hire a counselor or someone to walk you through how you're feeling? Because we can't tell anybody how to feel. We can't tell anybody how we're supposed to feel. This stuff is unthinkable, unimaginable. And so what I have had to do is get really clear about what is my role in solving some of these most egregious issues that are facing people in our country. And by the way, around the world, because I've been around the world. Okay, so it doesn't just happen here in the United States. what is my role in eradicating this kind of hate such that people are not killing people because of hate, because of the color of their skin. And so that is what I've been spending my time on, is understanding and asking and praying about what my role is so that I can walk it out and be a person of action during this time.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Kumbu, how about you? How are you feeling? How are you feeling tonight? And how have the recent events affected you? He may be frozen, so we'll come back to Kumbu. What about you, Jesiah?
I don't know why, but I knew you were coming to me next. I have no idea why I knew that. Just a little joke, y'all. So I've been saddened by it. I've been frustrated by it, angered by it, and I've also been encouraged. I'm going to coin a term here on this show. I'm going to call it a white awakening. That's what I'll call it. And a lot of the protests and marches that I participated in, or that I've watched, I've probably seen just as many, if not more, white people marching and protesting alongside Black people that I've seen in a long time. And I think that that's promising for a lot of reasons. It's frustrating because for me, it makes me ask the question, well, where were you before this? This isn't new. The things that many people of color have been struggling with, it's not new in any way. But I'm excited that they're there. And so that's why I think I'm encouraged that hopefully we're at a place.
I think we just lost him. His reception was looking a little choppy, but so we'll go right to you, Sandy. How are you feeling? How are you tonight?
Now, let me say right now, I'm much better. I am way much better. I think, those that are close and dear to me know that when this all started, I was very emotional. My feelings were all over the place. I was mad, frustrated, upset, but yet out on the front lines and had to work every day for at least 12-hour days for 14 days straight with no time off. So I was all over the place. And then to be frustrated because now I have to explain to my daughter what is happening, what is going on, because I see it. But being in a position that I'm in, it became to me more frustrating and more, I was angry. And then like Jesiah said earlier, to see that when the protests take place, there are individuals that are now walking next to us, walking side by side, whom I'm praying and hoping that we can all make a difference after all of this is said and done, because it's going to continue if we don't stand up and demand a change. There is nothing that's going to be able to remain the same if we get out there and speak. So am I still a little angry, little upset, still frustrated? Yes. But I am, and Evie can tell you, I am 110% better than what I was, but I am still a little angry because there are times when things take place, we still as leaders don't address them. But my question is, why is it that we don't do that? So with all of that being said, I'm better. It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. Retirement is around the corner.
Snap on that one. Yes. Jesiah, welcome back. I'm sorry you got cut off. Are you okay now? Is the reception okay now? Do you want to continue?
Oh, I don't know where I left off at, but I tried coining the term. I called it a white awakening. I don't know if everyone heard that. So that's encouraging in that we're able to see people that are marching side by side with us to promote equity and to promote justice for everybody. And I think that that's important. But then again, as my sister said, it's frustrating in some ways because it makes you, again, you asked, I don't know if you heard this, and it makes you ask the question, well, where were you the last time this happened? Where were you the time before that happened? That you're here now. And so that part angers me, but I'm happy that they're there. It's almost like people have been asleep. And now suddenly, all of a sudden, people are saying, oh my gosh, has this been going on? And you want to look at it and say, this has been going on since we got here, 1600s. So I'm excited, I'm motivated, I'm angry and frustrated, but I feel purposeful in the movement and we're trying to accomplish.
Wonderful. Kumbu, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Yes,
okay,
I can.
Wonderful. Okay. So how are you doing? And how have the recent events affected you?
I am passionate about transformation. And I think the recent events for me have been an opportunity to amplify this message that we need to deal with the domination system. For a long time, what has happened is that, in Africa, let me speak from an African perspective, we have seen domination kingdoms that have, existed throughout the continent of Africa. And I think it's true for African Americans as well. And you can remove the domination kingdom, but still have the domination system existing. So, and what has happened is that we need to dismantle the ideologies, the ideas, and the systems that perpetuate racism. And I think, in my context, we've seen governments changing, but the script doesn't change. And so we have to change the scripts. And that's why I'm passionate to be part of this conversation.
Thank you, Kumbu. Yeah, that was powerful. Carlyn, how are you doing?
My computer didn't want to go off mute. I apologize. I think at this point in the process, I feel I'm leaning more towards feeling energized. I think for a long time, I was fluctuating between just absolutely exhausted and encouraged, exhausted just because it's like, here we go with the same thing again, encouraged by all the new attention that it's getting. But like Jesiah, I was feeling like, wow, it really took the entire world being closed and shut down from a global pandemic for you all to pay attention to what we've literally been screaming about for all of these years. So, decades and centuries that we've been, waving the flag and saying, hey, we need help through this. I think at this point in the process, I'm trying to do my part in educating myself more, as listening to the words of our ancestors, getting into Angela Davis and Bell Hooks and Audre Lorde, and really monitoring what they were saying back then so that we know better how to take steps forward now. And on a personal level, I've been trying to use my platform to focus on systemic racism. So I'm less worried about the prejudice. If you don't like me because you don't like Black people, you're missing out, but that's fine. But really focusing on what's going on in back rooms, conversations that are happening, what corporations are doing that are perpetuating systemic racism, and that, being able to focus on those issues and use my platform to bring awareness to it gives me a lot of energy right now.
Thank you. We have so much passion on this panel. Oh, so much passion.
We couldn't all been in the same room. That's why we on this technology.
Right. Ify, how about you?
Oh, goodness. Well, I kind of talked about my why, but how am I doing? Wow. I'm better. And in the words of, I can't think of the pastor's name right now. Get ready. Right. So I took some time to do some self-care. There was a lot of, not new to this, right? We're not new to this, right? And some of us is true to it, right? So, for me, I think there were some new emotions and new experiences that I did not have before that I had to wrestle with, right? Having this, my children are older and, Mom, I'm going to the well, hold on. Wait a minute. What we doing? And so like the mom and me stood up, but then the protester and me stood up and we was having the conflict, right? And so, allowing them to lean in and be the generation that's the answer, right? to their TDJs. Yeah. You know, but then it's like, you know, then I'm looking at some of my friends and colleagues that are in the police department and fire department, right? And trying to wrestle and grapple with their perspectives and all of that. It was a lot to digest and take in and just breathe through, right? So, you know, I initially just tapped out, right? And just said, I can't do it right now. What I can do is make some sandwiches for my friends that's at work all night, right? And this is what I did, right? And so, but then beginning to leverage my platform and leverage my voice and lead with grace, right? And just, you know, lead with grace and come from a place of curiosity and give people a space, right? To talk it out and feel safe, right? Like some of my colleagues were like, can I just talk to you about this one? I don't know where else to go. I don't want to get, you know, I just need a safe space to say something and not feel judged, right? And I feel I can have that for you. And so, you know, and then I just, you know, and so that's why I'm here, right? Because I love Black folks. I love Black people, right? Love Black culture, love African-American culture. And there's so much richness there. And just believe is what I'm called to do.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And this is definitely a safe space.
What's your why, Ms. Jones? Don't be trying to skip.
We're not on whys. We're on
why
how
you
you feeling.
How you feeling, Ms. Jones?
How am I feeling? All right. I am feeling, I'm feeling great. I'm feeling great at the anticipation of the work that's about to go forward. I feel great about this seed that we are all planting as Black leaders. And I feel great about what's going to come after this, what's going to flourish from this conversation. You know, like you said before, you know, I have a strong feeling that the right people are listening and the right people will be viewing the video later on, and we will just be pushing this thing forward. So this is just a small seed that we are planting, and it's going to take off. So I feel excited about that. As Black leaders, why is it important for us to talk about anti-racism in the workplace? And I'm going to ask Carlyn and Sonia to answer that question. As Black leaders, why is it important to talk about anti-racism in the workplace? We'll start with Carlyn.
Take both. You can take it off. You can just go.
Tag team.
Well, I think that it is important for Black leaders as people who have privilege at their job to advocate for those of us who are coming behind so that they can pave an easier path. And I don't think that it is our responsibility to try to dismantle racism, just to bring awareness and speak boldly in spaces where those coming behind us cannot. So, you know, as a level 1 consultant, I'm not going to be able to say some things as if I were a level 4 consultant. So I'm going to be in rooms that are different and have a little more influence. And, you know, it's important to use that moment. First of all, acknowledge it as a privilege, but then also use that moment to clear the way for those that are coming behind us. And, you know, I think we're kind of at that point where we have to stop trying to, you know, make white people comfortable. Okay. They're going to have to be uncomfortable. I've been uncomfortable for a long time. Mm-hmm. So, you know, just in an educational way, ensure that we're bringing them awareness so that they can do the work that they need to be doing so that, you know, Black people are not feeling discriminated against in the workplace.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, you know, I'm gonna take you all back to my first role in corporate America. So I started off my career at Ford Motor Company in Detroit, and then I went to the Gillette Company in Boston, Massachusetts. And then when Procter & Gamble acquired Gillette, I led part of that integration and moved to Cincinnati. The nasty natty. Mm-hmm. The nasty natty. So we have these things called personnel development committees at Ford. And these groups were in charge of deciding who was going to be promoted next. Okay. So I was fortunate enough to have a seat at that table. Now, as the only African-American person at the time originally, I also had a responsibility, Okay, so we're gonna talk. We're gonna be straight, no chaser tonight, right? So
I mean, we can get you a chaser later, but not right now.
So I had a responsibility. So listen, if you are scared and mealy-mouthed and afraid to speak up and make sure that there are questions, there's a check in place, you got to do the check. And so often people will get in these seats and they sit in them and they're gatekeepers, but they're not very adamant about making sure that change happens because they try to play it safe. And if you play it safe versus having that courage and digging deep and asking those tough questions, then nothing ever changes. And so I am so thankful that I came from parents and a lineage of people who made sure that we used our voices to drive the change that we wanted to see, to be the change that we wanted to see. And so in those personnel development committees, I talked about the fact that we were describing our African-American, the Black folks, we had some different descriptors for them in terms of how they were performing that we didn't hear when we were talking about other groups. And if you don't paint the picture and help people understand it, they just kind of keep going, right? So we had to step back and say, well, wait a minute, what is going on here if we're hearing these kinds of things as descriptors for Black people's performance, but we're not hearing it for other groups? And so those are the kinds of things that I just wanted to make sure that we highlight tonight for everyone who's listening. Hey, when you're in those seats, you have to make sure that there is a check on what is happening. What is the language that you're paying attention to, the environment? What is happening? What's the culture? And is it benefiting everyone, or is it in some way harming some groups? You got to ask those questions.
Yeah, and we know culture eats strategy for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and a snack at midnight with a beer to wash it down if that's what you need.
Do you mind if I add to that?
Yeah, please do. Anybody else want to add to it? Absolutely.
The thing that I also wanted to say was that, because you touched on a lot of good points about when you are in the room and being able to, acknowledge when discrimination is happening, being able to point that out. But also we have to teach people that not everything that's Black is ghetto. Okay. So I should be able to show up at work, be my full Black self, and that should not be a problem. What that means is that, we have to actually do that. We have to actually show up and be our full selves at work, because we're only doing a disservice and making it harder for ourselves and others if we don't do that. And that's something that you can do no matter what level you're at. Just show up yourself. But if you're also in a position of influence, make sure that you're looking for those code words that Sonia was talking about and being able to speak to that.
Thank you, Carlyn. Jesiah, you had something to add?
Is that as leaders, we need to lift as we climb. That's one of our responsibilities. And lifting as we climb, sometimes you can get tired. And so for those that are leading out there and that feel like they're the only one and they're surrounded and they have to then represent an entire people, everyone's looking at them to lead. If you're getting tired, it's okay. Just lift what you can and climb the steps that you can, and you'll get there. So I just wanted to drop a little nugget. We do have to lift as we climb, but we have to recognize sometimes where we are and just do the best that you can.
My thing is, and you guys you pointed out a lot of good things, and I'm in a totally different field, and I see a whole lot of things as far as being a leader, but I also know that we have leaders in place in all of these professions. There are African Americans, minorities that's in place, and they are just a figurehead. They're just there. And a lot of times that if they do speak up and if they do bring it out, they do point it out, then they become ostracized and then be demanded or ordered not to say anything, but to sit back and be quiet. So sometimes there are those that are in those positions, that hold those positions, important positions, but yet have no support from those that are higher up. So they're limited to what they can say and do. Now, me as a leader, I'm very boisterous. I like saying whatever it is I feel is necessary to say. And I'm going to point out if I see any type of racism or anybody being mistreated, I'm one of those few that will speak up. But I've also been in this position and in a place where I've seen African-American leaders that are figureheads sitting in prominent seats that try to put individuals in place, but then there's somebody that come behind them or around them or on top of them and make sure that they don't ever do that again. So how, as a Black leader, how can we get around that? How can we continue to speak up without being ostracized or being ordered and told, you cannot do that and don't let it happen again? Now what do we do?
Yeah, thank you for asking that question, because what I'm going to say also takes courage. So, that's what I was talking about in the first part of my my comments. We must find allies. When you're in these organizations trying to fight these battles on your own, I've never seen it work when you try to do it on your own. Having allies, people who are willing to say, you know what, I will be here to support you, making sure that they understand and you can articulate very clearly what it is you're trying to do. And then finding people who believe in what you believe in, and they're out there. Now, does it take some work sometimes? Absolutely. You got to test that thing. You got to check over here with Bill and check over here with Tom and Angie and everybody. You've got to make sure that you are clear about what you are proposing, that you can articulate it to a number of different people and find people who believe in what you believe in. When I was able to do that, then I wasn't going it alone. Then I didn't have to worry about being ostracized, because there were a number of us in leadership who were actually moving towards the same thing. But that's a great question, because I get that a lot. And so often people feel like they have to go it alone. Every single time I saw people going it alone, it never ended well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I'm going to say it one more time for the people in the back. We need allies, right?
Allies.
Got to have allies, right? And allies look all different arrays, right?
Yes.
So, because, similar to what Sandy was saying, is we need, as Black leaders, we need to be each other's allies, right? As just as much as we need white or Caucasians to be our allies, Latinx, Asian, African, we need allies, and we have to do it for one another, right? But we've got to cultivate trust to get to those relationships, right? And we've got to extend trust to get to that place, right? And without it, we can't build allies, because relationships are built on trust.
And all of that is easier said than done, and let me tell y'all, I do like keeping it 100, but all of that is easier said than done. There's a lot of individuals that are Black, Mexican, Puerto Rican, white, whatever, they're not going to be your ally. They're not going to stand with you, because once again, they are also afraid to be ostracized by whatever happens, whatever takes place, don't want to be a part of it. You'll never get anything because you are a Black male or female who speaks out and makes sure that you point people in the right direction, make sure they're doing the right things. Sometimes everybody don't want that. So in order for you to become a great leader and to gain allies, it's going to take a lot of work, but a lot of times, those individuals that you're trying to get to be your allies, they're not trying to be a part of you because they don't want to be ostracized either. So I get it. It's easier said than done, but it takes a whole lot of work. But in the midst of all that work, you'd have missed out on that assignment because you're trying to get an ally. That's the way I see it. I'm just saying.
Well, let me just say this though, sister. And this is where I see people doing this all day long, and I think it is a huge issue. You need to go where the love is. Do not stay in cultures and organizations where they don't appreciate or value you. There are thousands and thousands of companies out here. Okay, you don't have to stay somewhere where people don't value you. Get up and find another culture and another organization where they will. And you do your homework, right? So it can't just be about money. You got to study these leaders. You got to study what they say, what they don't say. You got to do some research of people who are already in the organization. And so that's another great point that you're making, Sandy, is don't stay. If you find that you have gotten yourself into an environment that does not value you, that you can't find allies, that is toxic, you must make a decision to move on.
I would, it's, you know, another take on going where the love is just focusing on personal connection. I think when when you're starting out, you don't know who's going to get promoted when. So I would say connect, laterally, and whoever that is that you just connect with, it doesn't matter what they look like. It may not even necessarily be that you are not able to build with other Black people because they don't want to help other Black people. It could just be that they don't know you. Y'all don't vibe, and that's all right too, because we're not all the same. So whoever you happen to be friends with, whoever you connect with on a personal level is, maybe more likely to advocate for you in the future, because chances are you're going to have vulnerable conversations with them and feel comfortable doing so. And they will open up and ask you questions, and maybe they'll let you know what some of their prejudices are, and you can speak to those. And I think that's where advocacy is born, is actually in personal relationships. But if and I know a lot of people like this, especially us, because we're a little bit guarded in corporate America, where we go in and we're all business, and we are in doing our 8 hours, doing your 12 hours, and then you're back out the door. But if you're not taking the time to connect with people, what motivation would they have to, go out on a limb for you?
That's right. I always say it. People don't advocate for folks that they don't know.
I think what's key as well, we need to have a long-term view. I think are gonna want to speak during this time, but once the wave has gone down, they'll go back into their shells and they won't engage anymore. And I think we need to be in this for the long haul as agents of change, confronting the racism as a mindset, but also confronting it as a life pattern and as a culture. And I think once we have that commitment, I think we will begin to see fruit. And definitely, I think the wave that's taking place is an opportunity for us to mobilize more people and to amplify our voice. But for me, I think it comes back to living from the inside out. Transformation begins with me. And I think once we begin to model that, hopefully we can begin to change the culture.
So the conversation of allies has really been jumping off in our comments. So they are really taking hold of really having, these allies in place to create these safe places in the workplace and even outside the workplace of really, how can we really, show up to be our authentic Black selves, have the courage to stand up and speak out. So let's move the conversation more into, the how. Like, how can these allies really stand up, for what they believe in, and stand up for, the Black leaders within the organizations? What is the how? Because let's just be honest, everybody does not have the luxury of, being able to, you know what, I'm experiencing this in the workplace and I'm just going to leave tomorrow, so they may need to work through some things. So what about that how? How can the allies really help in the workplace? And then how, as Black leaders, how can they really, stand up for their voices?
Can I speak a bit into that?
I'm sorry.
Yes, Kumbu. Yep, Kumbu.
And then
Carlyn.
Right. I think for me, like I said, transformation has to begin with you, and then we need to find each other. I think so many times we fight change on our own, and we're not able to identify the like-minded people within. If you're going to build a movement, you don't start with 100 people. I think, Jesiah, you were talking about the Bible. Jesus started with 12 men. So I think we have to take baby steps and begin to identify each other. I'm reminded about a tool called the belief tree, because part of the problem is that when you address the fruit of a problem, but you don't go to the belief system, is that you might end up thinking you're addressing the real issue. But at the end of the day, all we're doing is we're removing the fruit, but we're actually not uprooting the tree.
Mm.
So that's why I talked about having a long-term view, is that for a lot of us, it's going to be a journey. Martin Luther King, how long did it take for him to deal with the system he was grappling with? And so I think identifying the issue we're dealing with, and remember, the enemy isn't that white person. It's a mindset. And I think once we understand that, is critical. I'll end with this. In Africa, we removed colonization. But what has happened, like people? So we need to actually understand that domination is a system, it's a mindset. And once we understand that, I think hopefully we'll be able to find the right people, because maybe you might find a white person who's actually an ally as well. And I think these are some of the hard issues.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Carlyn?
Yep, I would say, so anything that you do as far as, gathering these allies and these advocates is building your own credibility. So my advice is go where you're talented, go where you're going to make an impression and you can be excellent, you can be amazing and stand out in some way. And that way people will be drawn to you anyway, because you make their job easier. But after that, one thing that you really, really have to focus on is having the courage to be honest and point out when you're being discriminated against. Because you're conditioned to not call white people racist, okay? To just make them comfortable. Don't rock too much. And what we really have to do is, again, go back to those personal relationships, ensuring that you have those relationships where it's okay. I mean, you don't have to call people racist, but, explaining what discrimination is looking like on a daily basis to you. And then also being honest with them that, hey, like, if you hear something like that, I need you to speak up for me. Like, if you say that we're friends, I need you to speak up for me on that, because I can't say that without being the angry Black woman. I can't say that without being an angry Black man. So this is what it is. And if you feel compelled to be on, if you're saying that you're on my team, please speak up for that. And I think that's really what it all boils down to. The how is having the courage to actually go there and have that conversation, whether you're at work or anywhere else.
Thank
you.
I
think is really important here is to remember to attack behaviors, don't attack people.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say it again, just so that, there's research that says we need to hear things 7 times before it really resonates in our soul. I just want to say it again. Don't attack people, attack behaviors. So when you are explaining what is bothering you, talk about the behavior. Talk about the behavior, because the minute you label somebody something, or you have a generalization, stereotypes and generalizations will bite you in the butt every single day, right? Because everybody doesn't fit in that. And so making sure, and this goes back to your communication and the courage to speak up, make sure you've thought about what it is you want to present, okay, that's bothering you. But what do you believe is the solution? When I saw so many of these situations come up, and I would ask, well, what do you want? What do you desire? What do you think people said? A lot of times they were stammering. They didn't know what they want. So I want people to walk it all the way out.
Mm-hmm.
When you think about the behaviors that you are seeing that are not right, okay? Mm-hmm. How do you then call them out? But then talk about, well, what is the remedy to the situation? How do you bring solutions to the conversation where it's not about attacking a person or people, but being very specific about what it is that you desire as well?
It's something you said that was amazing. And it makes me think just how important allies are. If racism is a structure, imagine it being a house. It's hard to dismantle a house by yourself. You need some help. And so, Brother Kumbu, you said something that was powerful. I'm sure we'll get to that in a minute. At the end of the day, racism really is an issue of the heart. And so it means it really is a spiritual thing. It's a spiritual thing. And so there needs to be a spiritual response to it. But let's just do it with the physical first. We need allies because it's difficult to dismantle an entire house by yourself. And it really comes down to this question where allies have to ask themselves, or we ask them, is what does an ally get out of helping us? And so at the end of the day, if it's a spiritual issue, it's about doing the right thing and promoting equity where it matters and where it counts. So like, some of these, I'm sure we'll get into some questions later on. I don't want to jump the gun, but it's a system, it's a structure, and you need help if you're going to tear down a house.
Yeah, that's great, Jesiah. So this conversation of allies, I mean, it's great. Building allies, really empowering allies. But sometimes we're the only ones. Sometimes we are the only ones in the battle. There may be allies there, but we may not have identified. They may not have been forthcoming to say, hey, I'm an ally. So Sandy, can you speak to us about being the only one, and how, as the only one, how do we create this safe place of awareness in our workplace, or any, maybe work, maybe personal, maybe certain groups, but as the only one, church, as the only one, how do we create that awareness?
I'm going to say, for me, I am very confident. I am very confident in who I am and what I do. I think you have to know who you are as an individual in order to overcome that. I am the only one. Why am I the only one? Why is it me all the time? As Carlyn said, every time you say something or do something, they label you as the angry Black woman, and that's not necessarily the case. You're just trying to make sure that you do things, and that how you see it, you make sure it's done correctly and accurately and consistently. So you have to be consistent about what you do, but you got to be very confident in how you do it when you do it. Because yes, I am in a place where I am the only female in my unit that's a leader, that's a supervisor. So how do I overcome that? I have to gain the confidence of the people that work with me. And I don't like to say they work for me, they work with me, because I can't get it done by myself. I got to have help. It's like Jesiah said, to tear down a house, you got to have help to tear it down. To build one, you got to have help to build that house. So with having a lot of confidence in knowing who I am and what I am and whose child I am makes a whole lot of difference when I'm in that situation, or I'm in a room by myself and I look around and I'm the only female, or I look around, it's only 1% that's African American in that class or in that room. Then you got to stand up. You got to be confident. You got to know who you are. You can't just allow things to take place and you do not address it. So that's my take on being a leader and how I see things and the way I do it.
Yeah, you know, it's hard to create a safe space, right? You know, it depends on what seat you're in, right? Like, I believe we're all leaders, right? We have the innate raw talents within us. It's a matter of cultivating those talents and developing those skills. And I also I say this all the time, the day's gonna be there, right? It's always gonna be they got to do some work. Like, they got to do this, and they gonna be there. What do you do within your sphere of influence? And so, sometimes you have to ask yourself, like, well, why me? Well, why not you? Right. And so, creating that safe space, it doesn't happen right in that moment. Right. It's something you cultivate. Right. So I can't just jump up today and say, okay, let's have a safe conversation if I have not demonstrated that I can perform or behave or cultivate a safe conversation space any other time, right? So when we talk about the budget, if it ain't safe for me, if you ain't safe with me in the room when it's time to talk about the budget, do not be trying to talk to me about race in the same room. You know what I mean? So we don't, leadership is a lifestyle. It isn't something you pick up tomorrow, like, okay, I'm gonna be a leader today and I'm ready to have safe conversations. No, ma'am. I want you to sit down next to me and we're going to do this together. Because we can damage one another if we jump out there unprepared, right? And we got to live it. We got to live it, right? And so, I think the two things that I always think that you need to create a safe space is, one, you got to have curiosity. You have to lead with curiosity. If you think you know the answer, you're in the wrong. You don't even need to be in the room. Go take a nap. Come back later when you refresh and rested, when your mind is clear, right? And I think the other thing that we need is, we need to understand. We have to be open-minded. We have to understand that there may be something said I don't agree with, but it doesn't mean my truth and your truth can't stand in the same moment. And we come to a place where we have awareness, right? And so, like, how do you get there? And then we got to create it together. So I'm just going to tell you, when we get in these places and people are like, it's a safe space, you rely on the truth ain't in it. Yep. They say it's fire retardant up there too, but I don't believe that as a joke could go up that it just might not catch on fire, right? Like, so, you have to ask people, what do you need? Right? What do I need and what do you need for us to make this safe space, right? And so as a leader, you have to lead with trust. You got to lead. I keep saying trust and that vulnerability, right? And that confidence that Sandy said, I got to have confidence that I can stand here and say, what do you need for this to be safe, right? And can I give that to you? Because I'm gonna be like, well, we can't make that happen. So we can't just pretend we made it happen. Like, yeah, I need that. Okay, great. You need that. We've got to cultivate that environment and hold it.
But you got to build relationships. You got to build that trust. You got to build it. It just, like you said, it's not going to happen overnight. I'm a firm believer. You lead by example. It's like if you're a mother or a father, you are leading by an example. So you do those same things in the workplace.
Yeah.
You got to lead by example. In order to get respect, you got to give respect.
I just want to add one thing about, because I was, pretty much in a corporate environment where no one was interested in creating safe spaces. So, you just kind of walk into the workplace and you're thrown to the wolves. And, our identity is so wrapped up in what we do. But, I live in DC. This is a very political place. People will ask you what you do before they ask you your last name. So I think shifting mentally, where we look at ourselves as whole people. So that safe space, maybe your group chat that you do, on the side, but you may not be able to depend on anyone at your job to create that space for you, but do the work so that mentally you can keep yourself whole when things are getting difficult.
Absolutely.
I'm glad you said that. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Brother Kumbu. Sorry, go ahead, brother.
To add there, I think one of the things we need to do as well is finding places where people are casting a vision of what a racially transformed workplace looks like. Because I think sometimes we're trying to build this house that we've never seen. So we know the house that's there, that's messed up, but no, we need more models. And I think we need to amplify those models and celebrate those models so that, because remember, white people in general, some of them feel insecure because they feel like if they allow us in, they're giving up power. Because remember, no one wants to give away negotiation that actually this is a win-win. You're actually not losing by actually treating me as an equal. And so I think we need more models, and the more we celebrate these models, hopefully I will then be able to go to my workplace and maybe I can share this story, this success story of what happened in that company, and maybe we.
That's good. That's good. Celebrating the new models like that. Jesiah?
Yeah, I was just going to say, and I think it's sad that I feel this way. So I in no way think that this is good, but when I go into a space, I assume that it is hostile. I just assume that it is. So again, I'm not celebrating that in any way. And I don't know if it's because I'm a Black male, but when I go into spaces, there have been spaces that were designed to be safe that I found out later was not safe. And so I found out I had to create my own spaces that I knew were safe with my own. And when I say my own people, I don't necessarily mean Black people, but people that I could be honest with and I could be vulnerable with, and they could be vulnerable with me and I could trust them. When I go in spaces, I assume that it is not safe. I assume that it is hostile because I have been treated hostilely in my life. And so I think, with this concept of self-care and taking care of yourself, I think as leaders, especially people of color that move into spaces, the Bible talks about putting on the whole armor of God. And so we have to keep our mind in a certain place where we're looking things at a certain way, and we're able to protect ourselves with the word of God, but knowing that everybody, just because they smile at you, they're not your friend. And there are many people that ultimately they are after something for themselves, not after you, and not after promoting equity. And so you have to keep that in mind as well. So sometimes you have to create your own spaces, because the spaces you might go into might not be safe. And that's just the reality.
Yeah. And as Black leaders, oh, go ahead, Sonia, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, that's why this is more a heart issue. So I talk about putting the human in humanity, right? I mean, because when you think about it, and I want you all to just think about some of the most egregious things that you've been through. And I know we all have stories. Sometimes those people look like you, and it hurts, because you would never, ever expect that someone that looked like you would try to take you out like that. Sometimes they don't look like you. And so what I really, truly believe, and this is what I talk to all my clients about, this is heart work. And I always put a hashtag on it. Heart work is the hard work. You cannot throw money at this. I'm seeing 100 million coming here and 1 million there and 10 million here. Companies are going to have to step back and decide, are you going to roll up those sleeves, and are you going to do the hard work? Because this is hard work, and hard work is the hard work, and nobody ever wants to do it. So guess what? Because we don't address the root, like Brother Kumbu said, we don't address the root. We put the Band-Aids on it. The Band-Aids fall off. Okay? And then what do we have? The same situation that our parents 50, 60, 70 years ago were talking about. We're still talking about it. If we don't sit still and really address what is at the heart of what is going on here, nothing will ever change. What's that physics theorem that says an object in motion stays in motion until there is there's a disruptor. We can be disruptors, brothers and sisters. We can do it. And now is the time. There's going to be a window. And this is what I've been telling everybody that I've been working with. We got a window. And if you don't get it together in this window, I am afraid that window will close. And we will still be sitting here talking about the same things with no long-term sustainable solution.
Absolutely. So that brings me to a question that one of our audience members has posed for the panelists. Asa says, can an organized group within the workplace be a way to make a difference? Or will it be seen as divisive? So we're talking about allies. We're talking about standing up, having that voice, really having that courage. So organizing a group within the workplace, is it going to make a difference? Or some people may see it as divisive. What are your thoughts?
Good. I'll call Daddy later.
Okay. I have to I'll let someone else.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let's start with Sonia.
Well, I was going to let someone else talk first, but I'll share my story with you. So when I got to Ford Motor Company, now I'm 25, so I don't want anybody doing the math, but it was in the 90s. And look at Sandy. So I'm asking people, I'm here. I got my little flag. I'm like, yes. Why aren't people helping each other here? Why are people trying to take each other out? Why are people stabbing each other in the back? And one of my girlfriends, she's still my girlfriend to this day, said, listen, here is every man and woman for themselves. We do not help each other. We don't share information. That's just not how it works. And I said, well, I'm going to change that. Now, here I am, just left FAMU, coming into a company to about 100 years old. And I said, I'm going to change that. But that's how I think. People who are crazy enough to believe they can change the world are the ones who do. And so I went to one of my allies and I said, I want to start an employee resource group. Now, this is before any of this was safe. Okay, so I took a lot of personal risk by doing it. But I said, I want to start a group of Black women, and I called it Sisters Who Are Buying. SWAB. I know it's an ugly name. Don't laugh at it. But I wanted to create a space where women could start talking to each other and sharing information, because it wasn't happening. And now, when you look at Ford Motor Company, I mean, it was the entree for all that is happening today with Pride and LGBTQ. Everything started because one little girl from Saginaw, Michigan decided to speak up and ask if we could start a group. So I think if you can find an ally who will be a sponsor. So what we did was we went to a senior level person. I got that person's sponsorship, allyship. And I said, we want to come together. We want to meet on company time. We want to be able to support each other, because we believe that this is going to help the profitability of this company. See, you tie it back to the dollars, because that's what we care about, the dollars.
Yeah.
So if all boats rise, okay, if we're all improving our productivity and our performance, then the company wins. So you, again, have to put it in the language of the leaders so that they can understand what it is you're asking for, and then be able to put together a group like that. So I would say, absolutely, if you have like-minded people who want to come together and you can find an ally and a leader to sponsor it, absolutely. I've seen it, be very, very good for an organization.
It takes one person to start a movement. Just one courageous person. Let's go with Sandy, and then let's go with Kumbu.
Well, I'm a part of an organization, and yes, you can have an organization that starts within. I'm a part of the Sentinels Police Association that started in 1968. And I'm not going to tell you how old I am either, but I am fairly old. Been around this thing in the department for 21 years. So I'm a little up there, Sonia. I got a little bit more years on you, though, girlfriend, but it's all good. But yes, you can start an organization within, because the organization that I'm a part of is that we fight the disparities, we fight the racism, we fight the promotions that we as Blacks don't get within the department. So my thing is, if you can start it, like you said, it doesn't take but one person. One person started the Sentinels Police Association, which now is probably 250 or 300 members now. That's a part of that, but we support each other. And are we allies? We are allies to a certain degree, to a certain point. When it comes to those disparities and that racism, and to see that Blacks aren't getting promoted or placed into preferred assignment, specialized units, yes, I say if you can start it, start it. If you don't have anybody but the 6 people that's on this panel to support you in what you're going to do, we will be a part. I'll be glad to help you, girl. I just said retirement is around the corner for me. I need something to do. I'm gonna need something to do. So yes, you can start it, because I am a part of an organization that's called the Sentinels Police Association, and that's what we stand on. I mean, we stand on the fairness, the disparities, and the racism that's within the department. So yes, honey, get it, start it, and if you need help, reach out to me or reach out to somebody on the panel. We'll be more than happy to help you get started, but you cannot be afraid to make it happen.
All right, audience members, you heard it here. You have 6 people, 6 panelists that are willing to help. Sandy, they're gonna call you, they're gonna message you. All right, Kumbu.
Yeah, that's amazing contributions. Just to add there, when the question was asked, I thought about 360-degree leadership. That in an organization, you're those that are at the bottom, and I like what Sonia said in terms of finding a sponsor. So I think you have to think strategically in terms of, and Sonia, I think you also mentioned it. You said, what do you want out of this? What are you trying to achieve? For me, when I look at the whole racism tree, you've got beliefs, you've got values, and then you've got behavior. So where are you? What do you want to change? Are you trying to change behavior? Are you trying to change values? Is it a values issue, which then you begin to look at organizational culture? Is it a belief system issue? Now you're going deeper, and so I think it depends what your project is, but it can be done. You just need the skill set to know how to do it.
Can I add one thing to your point there? If if you're going to organize, one, I think that's an amazing thing. You absolutely should organize. But know this, and this is a very, very important, something people may or may not tell you. Anytime you challenge the status quo, you will be viewed as a threat.
That's it.
So if you're going into it just hoping that you're not gonna step on, just know someone will view you as a threat because you were challenging the status quo. But also know that that's okay, because you can't have progress unless you challenge the status quo. As long as you do so with integrity and with wisdom and with respect, you're gonna be okay. And so know those things. So some people avoid the hard conversations because there's going to be friction. Anytime you challenge the status quo, there's going to be friction because you're challenging it. So please know that.
And don't go alone, right?
I just want to add one more quick thing.
Yep.
Okay. Because I think that the formal organization with having sponsorship and backing is really, really important, especially if you have already outlined what your goals are. That will be a quicker way to get them done if you have, the sponsorship that Sonia was talking about. But if you can't get that, get you a kitchen cabinet. Y'all know how the president has his cabinet? Okay, we'll get you a kitchen cabinet. Okay, and make sure that you all are working together to act like a tiger team. Okay, you're on this team, you're on this team, you're on this team. Okay, we're all dispersed across the organization. This is what we think we should see happening. Let's all speak up about this at the same time. And where it's appropriate, and then that'll create a ripple effect, and people will start hearing stuff from multiple angles. Like, sometimes, like who said that you have to hear something like 7 times before you. That's absolutely true, and you can start that, just with your, with the people that you trust and support, and those don't have to be people that look like you, just people that who are aligned.
So, Ify, how do we do this without seeming divisive within one organization? We talk about building teams and trust, and so how do we do these smaller groups within an organization without being divisive among the entire team?
That's a great question, right? Because as Black leaders, I would say everybody on this panel and many of us know, retaliation, as Jesiah talked about, and that retribution, it's real, right? It's real, right? I mentioned the Bible. Jesus wasn't even loved in his own hometown, right? So, so I think it's you got, in all things, get wisdom, right? And get knowledge, right? So, before you go out there, talk to some people, right? Reach out, right? We're talking with our clients and working with organizations, right? We're talking about, what is already happening within the organization. Where are there mentors that you can reach out to? But even within your networks and circles, right? Somebody has gone down this road before, right? And so how are you nurturing those relationships that you have outside of work? Do you have a mentor? If you don't have a mentor, get a mentor. But before you get one, know what it means to have one, right? But asking other people, right? That wisdom of the generation in front of us and the generation behind us is important, right? And so getting that knowledge, saying, hey, did you ever do this at your workplace? Or do you know somebody who knows somebody I can talk to that has done this before, so that I can get some understanding and be able to strategically navigate, right? They can see those pitfalls and be like, you're going to hit this hump. So this is what you're going to need to think about to get over that hump, right? And so those it comes back to that relationship and that that allyship. But asking people that have gone before you what has worked, and asking people to work. Did somebody else already do this, right? And what was the response? What happened? Where was that response coming from? And tying it to more than just your why, right? Because it's not always about us, right? Everything is not always about us, right? We can be so absorbed with ourselves, and that's some human nature. But the divisiveness can come. And so how are you messaging it, right? Might you have to start at point -1 and then get to 1? You might have to, right? But don't sacrifice the mission because of that, right? I can't have 1, so just forget it. I'm not going to do nothing, right? Because again, it's not about us, right? It's about that road and that trail that we are moving the ball down the field for others, and thinking about that. But the backlash is real, and what is it worth to you? What is your why? Because people don't buy what you do; they buy why you do it.
Absolutely. You know, the road of leadership, as you reference, Ify, it could be lonely. It could be lonely. It's challenging. You can be the only one that you feel is really wanting to make a difference. But to start a movement, it only takes one. And building allies and building that trust and having that courage to have those conversations is very important. Very important. This has been a robust conversation, very robust conversation. Do we have anyone else on the panel or any questions on from our audience? Any other comments that you may have?
So I have go ahead, Sonia.
Go ahead.
Sonia.
Sonia.
Reprogram.
And I've known you for like 55 years. Ify, let me just say one point about that divisive. You may come across, because I think the question says, or will it be seen as divisive? It may be seen as divisive, right? So let's not sugarcoat that. But it cannot keep you from doing what's right. Please, if you are in the seat, you have to recognize by any means necessary within the law, within integrity, high integrity, you have a responsibility. I'll give you a quick story. When I was at Ford, what they were trying to do was figure out ways to bring Black people into higher levels fast. So those of us who started our careers at Ford hadn't gotten promoted to that next level yet. And so they said, well, let's just go out and recruit some people and just bring them in at these senior levels. Well, when they went outside and hired a Black woman, that all the Black people felt like, well, Sonia, why didn't you get that job? Because you've been working your butt off and you've been doing this and you've had all of this success. Why wouldn't they just promote you? Well, listen, if it ain't in God's plan, nobody can give it to you.
That's right.
Okay. And it's all about his time and in his plans. Jeremiah 29:11 says he's got amazing plans for us. The question is, do you know those plans? Okay. And so people wanted me to be mad that she had gotten this role. And I said, absolutely not. I'm going to do everything humanly possible to make sure she's successful so that we can all be successful.
Right.
That doesn't happen often. Okay. We are not each other's keeper. I'm sorry. I've seen it. I've lived it. I've watched it. That's the reason why the Sister Accord exists today, because women are taking each other out.
Yep.
Right. So I want to put myself out of business. How do we do that? We start looking at the bigger picture and recognizing that it is not about what God has for you. He has for you. Comparison is the enemy and thief of joy. So comparing, trying to compete, trying to take other people out is not the way to do it, friends. Please figure out how you can support each other, take care of each other, and love on each other, because Black on Black crime doesn't only happen in the street. I have seen it happen in the boardroom.
It might be more prevalent there because ain't no homicide unit coming.
No.
Nobody's coming. But we gotta be checked. We gotta be checked on this, because I see it, and every time I hear a story, my stomach just turns because I am so pained by it. We must take care of each other. We must take care of each other.
Yeah. But how do we give up that power?
Well, like for me, it was the spirit walk. It was my walk with God. Jesiah said it earlier, we're fighting against spirits, right? So for me, I had to get comfortable in my own skin, and I had to get in the word, and I had to understand that whole premise of what Jeremiah 29:11 really was about. Because once I understood that, it kept me from looking to the left and right and saying, oh my God, they got promoted before me. Oh my God, this happened before me. Now, I'm not saying don't be aware of what's going on around you. I'm just saying don't let it take you out and cause your behavior to become toxic. That's what.
And I don't think we're giving up the power. I think you have to learn how to control the power that you have.
That's right.
That's good. That's good.
I do too. You know, I think it's something you said that was powerful, and it's I don't think it's so much about being divisive. I think it's about more about being disrespectful. See, this is the thing. If you're on the wrong side of whatever you're fighting for, then those that are on the right side are going to be divided from you. I have no problem challenging something that's not right. And in challenging something that's not right, those people on the other side will view me as being divisive. I mean, it's just the way that it goes. So I guess the question is, what do you stand for? If you're going to stand for what is right, at some point it is going to tear things apart. The Word of God says, what Jesus said, look, I don't come to bring peace. I come to bring the sword, separating this from that, where you have to make a decision. Either you stand for what is right, you're standing with God, or you don't. There is no gray area. Word of God says, I would that you be hot or cold. You're lukewarm. I want to spew you out. So you have to make a decision. Either you're on the right side or you're not. And so it's not so much about being divisive. It's about being, you said the word about being toxic or about being disrespectful. Can you stand for what is right and still be, and still do so with your integrity and still do so with wisdom and still represent who God is in those moments, even if you have to stand alone? And so I think there are some people that are looking for ways in order to try to avoid the friction and the difficulty. It's not about being divisive. It's about being disrespectful and using your integrity and standing for the Lord. If you stand for God, there will always come a moment where you will separate from other people. But I'm about to start preaching. That is that's just the reality. It's where we are. And my sister, that's with the police force. You know what I'm talking about, probably more so than I could ever speak on it. There have been, I'm sure, many times when you've had to stand for what is right and no one else stood with you, and it made you look as if you're being divisive when really you're standing for what is right.
That's right. Every day. Every day.
Sandwiches, Jesiah.
Drop the mic. Drop the mic. Drop the mic. Hey, can we pass the offering plate around now? Just pass the offering plate. Somebody get the offering. Usher. You need usher.
Right. Because
go ahead.
Because as an ally, my role isn't always, to be in the forefront or to stand in the forefront or to say, right? Like, how do I just cheer you on? Right. In Black culture, you hear grandparents. My grandmother used to always say, we getting a degree. I'm like, who is we? I didn't see you in class with me. Right. Well, baby, here go $20. What am I gonna do with that? Do you know how much school costs? Well, I'm going to the store though. Right. Take this 20 and go to the store. Right. And so knowing that people, the shoulders we stand on. Yeah. Right? That's what you're talking about. The shoulders we stand on. All of us. I don't care what color you are, what creed you are, what religion you believe in, the shoulders you are standing on, you have a obligation.
That's right.
To the future and to your present. You have an obligation, right? To live your life poured out.
It is a matter of the heart. It's a matter of being decent people. And it's a matter of walking in your purpose. Guess what, y'all? This is only part one. This is only part one. This has been such a robust conversation. We have all of these experts on our dynamic panel. And you know what? We're going to be back next week.
What's that?
Same time, same place. We started at 6. Isn't that right, Sandy?
That's correct. Eastern Standard Time, 6 p.m.
6 o'clock with Sandy on Tuck Radio, and we are going to continue this conversation. This has been fun. Did y'all have a good time? Y'all have a good time?
I had a wonderful time.
Thank you so much for the panelists for taking time out to have this great conversation, and for the audience members, thank you so much for your comments and your energy. Like, we feel your energy even through your comments. So thank you so much for that. This is all supporting. This is supporting the movement that we have now dedicated ourselves to. So it doesn't, you may be like, oh, I'm just going to listen. I'm just going to see what's going on. Oh no, you're a part. Right. You are a part of the movement. And with that, I'm going to kick it back to Sandy and she's going to close us out.
Hey, everybody, we want to thank you for joining us. And for next week, I'm going to pose a question to all of the listeners and the viewers and who's ever out there. And you ask your mama, you ask the deacons, missionaries, saints, and friends. I need you all to tell me the difference between racism and prejudice. See, we didn't get into that discussion this week, but we're going to touch that next week because I'm interested to hear what you have to say about racism versus prejudice. And on that note, before we leave every week, we have to leave you with something positive. And I'm going to have the moderator to look at her screen and go from one end to the other end, because we got to leave you with something good that's going to help you overcome that hump till we see you next week. Take it over, moderator.
All right, we're going to start with Ify Bell. She's first on my screen.
Oh, I am? Okay. You know, I'm going to say what I said last week, right? Like, because I just still think it's the right thing. You stay ready, so you don't got to get ready.
Carlyn.
One of my favorite people ever is Felicia Rashad. And one thing that her mother taught her is the universe bears no ill to me and I bear no ill to it. So I mentioned earlier about looking at the totality, the sum of who you are, and realizing that racism is only one part of that. And you are still completely in control, and you can cultivate whatever life you want to have.
Sonia.
When you transform your relationships, you can literally transform your life. It takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of intentionality. And some of the folks said, you know, but it's hard to do this, or it's challenging to do that. Absolutely. It's all hard. It's all challenging. If it was easy, everybody would be doing it.
That's right.
Called. We all have an assignment. You are called for such a time as this. It's time to design your destiny.
Kumbu.
Well, in Africa, we have a term called Ubuntu, which
we're having a hard time hearing you, Kumbu.
It means
we made it all this way.
Can you hear me now?
All right,
there we go. Can you hear me?
Yes.
In Africa, we have a term called Ubuntu, which says I am because we are. And I think we need to build bridges. If we can build bridges and go back to the human being, not black, white, Indian, but human being, I think we'll go a long way.
I have to write that down. I am because you are. All right.
That's right.
Jesiah.
I just want everybody to remember that God is in control. He's always in control. And so the verse where it says, and my sister said it, Jeremiah 29:11, for I know the thoughts I think towards you, saith the Lord. Thoughts of peace and not of evil, to give you an expected end. And so if you're in God and God is in you, then it doesn't matter what happens around you. God is always in control and he always has you.
All right. Before we get to Sandy, I'm going to say mine first, and then you can say yours last. Mine is everything works out in the end. And if it hasn't worked out yet, then that means it's not the end. Before we kick it off to Sandy, I want to also say thank you so much for my co-moderator, Ashley Phelps, who's been in the background, all of the comments and replying. So thank you. And Sandy, there you go.
Behind every great black woman is another great black woman.
Hello.
and another great black woman and another great black woman. And with that being said, I have a motto that I like saying. I got a few of them, but many are called, very few are chosen, but many are chosen and not called. But you need to know the difference. And on that note, it's always better to give than it is to receive. And we'll see you next Wednesday.